HBO had all these amazing series and Showtime. My brother used to call it Ho-Time. And he still does. Because they did like a lot of Red Shoe Diaries, kind of like slightly trashy television, and they hadn't started creating the content like now. They have amazing shows. And this was sort of the first show that they put a lot of money behind, and you felt that, like you felt the network being like, this is going to break us out of, you know, HBO's shadows, it's going to be the thing. And you just feel that on set. Executives are coming all the time, and press is coming all the time.
Everyone wants to know where their money is going.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes, a lot of times you do things and you can tell nobody cares from the beginning to the end of the process, nobody gives a shit. And this was like something that people were talking about.
Did you receive any fan mail at the time?
Once it started airing, yeah. No, not before.
So tell us about what, this is episodic television. You shoot an episode a week, right?
Yeah, an episode every 7 working days.
7 working days. Yeah. So what would 7 working days look like for you?
Well, for the entire shoot, it would be like we would start very early in the morning on Monday, usually around 4 or 5. And you can only shoot a certain amount of hours, and then you need, because of the unions, you need a certain amount of turnaround for the crew and for the cast. So they have to keep pushing later and later every day. So you'd start on a Monday at like 4 or 5 in the morning. The next day you'd start, you know, at 9. By Friday you were starting at 1 in the afternoon and shooting until like, usually the sun came up on Saturday. And then you'd have to start again at 4 in the morning on the next Monday. You kind of have a half day off. So your sleeping schedule is really screwed up. It's much worse for the crew, but because for me, the actors, we would only work, you know, we wouldn't work constantly. So I'd work, on a busy day, I'd work all 5 days at different times, but not the whole day. So often, you know, you'll have a day off, and then suddenly they'll call you and be like, you have to come here at 4 in the morning tomorrow. You're like, that's just cool.
So there's no room for life outside of the production?
There is, but you can't schedule it. You have some time, but you can't predict when it will be.
And scripts, do you get a lot of changes, last-minute changes?
We did. We usually get completed script about a week and a half before we started shooting, and we would all get together and have a big read-through. But then throughout the shooting process, you would get changes, and very often the morning you would get there, you would get a packet of the dailies, and there would be changes to the scenes we were shooting that day. Usually not major ones.
Okay, let's talk about the atmosphere of working in the production on the set.
Okay.
Seeing as most of the people, most of the cast members, are strict, was there any sort of discussion around the themes brought up by the show, by whatever it was you were shooting at the time? Did people give any consideration to what was being done other than professional consideration?
How do you mean consideration other than professional?
Did you discuss these matters with the others, or was it just strictly?
We discussed everything, but professionally. I mean, we would have meetings with executive producers and the cast members involved and the director of that episode for every scene that had any kind of sexual content, and discuss exactly what needed to happen, what needed to be shown, where the camera was going to be, how long the shoot would take, what level of dress everybody would be at. I mean, it was done very, very technically. Yeah, but I mean, everybody, as far as the straight members, everybody was very comfortable doing the sexual content. I mean, nobody really cared. And they all believed in the project politically and socially, so they were, you know, engaged, they wanted to do it well. So there weren't like weird, uncomfortable things.
Okay.
Not at all.
Did you or any of the others consider Justin and the other characters to be role models for people? Like they might end up?
I didn't really think about it much. I don't know. I think the writers probably had sort of ideas of the characters as certain archetypes and wanting to represent certain ideas they had about the gay community, but I didn't personally think of anything but playing each scene as well as I could.
Russell T Davies was the original writer and producer of the television show. We also know him from the Doctor Who revival, which is very successful. And I most of the first episodes were based on the British version.
Yes.
But later on it developed, obviously, because you had 5 seasons.
Yeah, the British only had 12 episodes, I think, or they had 10.
Did you have any say on how your character was being developed, written, any input?
Not really, actually. We tried, and it was a sort of struggle, but I think the head writers had very strong ideas about what they wanted to do, and it almost felt like the more you tried to put your voice in, the more they'd fight you. So most of us stepped back and accepted the fact that, they were in charge and they had to do what they wanted.
Looking back, how do you assess the work they did in confronting these issues?
I don't know. I think they did. I think that I had a very specific perspective of it when I was shooting it that led me to be more frustrated than I would be now, looking back, if that makes sense. I mean, I was so inside of it, and I took everything so personally, as actors are wont to do, and playing a character and having to live life with the character. But I think for what they wanted to do, they really hit the nail on the head. I mean, they had these very specific political issues they wanted to talk about in a very specific way. They wanted to use these characters to represent these very specific current topics, and I think they did. It could be frustrating at the time because you had an idea of who this human being was, and you wanted more nuance or more conflict or more something, but that wasn't what this show was. And I can realize that now, the farther I am from it.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about working on episodic television?
That it's glamorous, maybe. I don't know what people. It's like it's crazy hours and it's a lot of work. I'm not sure what people's perceptions of working on episodic television are, so I can't say, that they're misconceptions.
Well, I guess that, there's this feeling of warmth about the series, like the actors might be a big family.
Right.
It looks very domestic in some of the scenes.
Well, that cliche was pretty much true for this cast. We thank God, because it would have been torture if we were fighting each other all the time. We got along pretty well, and we all bonded pretty early on in the process, because I think it was a specific kind of actor who would want to be a part of this project, and we were all except for Hal Sparks, we were all very new to having a job at this level, and we were all displaced into a foreign city that none of us had connections to, so we were the only thing we had, so we had to become, my family to some extent.
Do you keep in touch together?
Yeah. I still see them. They all live in LA and I live in New York, so we see each other.
Now, you spent a lot of your time on this show, how should I say, self-floating.
Right.
Yeah, naked. But I'm sure the audience doesn't want to hear about that. No. I guess you get asked about this a lot.
Right.
Has your theatrical training prepared you for this?
For taking off my clothes.
For taking off the clothes, for the sex scenes?
I had absolutely no problem doing the sex scenes at the beginning of the series because I really thought it was politically and socially important. Also, I thought for the character of Justin, as I knew him at the time, which was only having the script for the first 3 episodes, I thought the loss of his virginity and his sort of sexual awakening were the most important part of this character's development at the time. And it was a scene that I had a connection with another character. It was important to the development of those 2 actors' relationships. So the 2 characters' relationships. So it wasn't difficult. I found as this series went on, other things were extraordinarily difficult. When you're doing a sex scene 5 years into a run and you feel like you've done the same thing 7 times and they're just throwing it in because it's just become part of the show, you're like, why the hell do I have to do this? It's so dumb. And it's hard when you're not like, this is an important scene and I'm totally engaged in it. And the whole thing about the character, I don't know if all of you you saw the show, but for like one season or half a season, the character was a stripper, and it was very, very, very difficult for me to do that. Like, virtually impossible.
A couple of years ago, just short 2 years ago, a masked gunman entered an apartment just a few blocks away into gay youth activity and shot people indiscriminately. 2 were killed. Others were injured. I think some of them are here tonight. And but homophobia doesn't only manifest itself on such a large scale or in these circumstances. And just about towards the end of the first season, there started a story arc for Justin, which spoke